Good evening and welcome to The Absolute Truth with Emerald Robinson. I'm Eduardo Neret, filling in for Emerald all week. The Democratic National Convention is finally underway in Chicago, and you know what that means. The freaks are out and the freaks are in town. The convention is already shaping up to be a barn burner, or perhaps more accurately, a city burner. Small businesses across Chicago are boarding up, especially near the convention site. Nearby employers have told their workers not even to bother coming into work this week, work from home. Why? Well, because, of course, the lovely Democrats like these people we're about to show you are in town. They spent the weekend before the convention even began marching for Hamas.
Y'all can do better than that. Mike, the money!
150,000 people are dead! You are funding a genocide! The Harris-Biden administration keeps funding money to Israel!
Gotta love Democrat voters. It's not just a pro-Palestine crowd, though. Twitter user Tony Saruga reports that, quote, over 30,000 international Antifa have already arrived in the Chicago area, with approximately 500 to 850 more arriving each day. Others estimate that as many as 100,000 protesters could be in Chicago this week. And then there's a recently released official opening statement made at the DNC announcing the start of the convention. It's interesting that the party that spent the last few weeks trying to convince Americans that they are the normal ones is actually a party of freaks, vagrants, lowlifes, and cringy protesters. How could that be? Well, maybe because Democratic Party leaders aren't so different from these street protesters we see in Chicago. They're as equally strange and extreme. The difference? Well, they wear suits and nice clothes. The statement they issued, which we have up on the screen, laments the fact that the convention is being hosted on tribal land. Seriously, quote, "The Democratic National Committee wishes to acknowledge that we gather together to state our values on lands that have been stewarded through many centuries by the ancestors and descendants of tribal nations who have been here since time immemorial. We honor the communities native to this continent and recognize that our country was built on indigenous homelands. We pay our respects to the millions of indigenous people throughout history who have protected our lands, waters, and animals." But, of course, no mention of the tens of thousands of innocents sacrificed also by many indigenous tribes. So it's really pretty hilarious. I mean, pretty soon they're going to be apologizing for the creation of the United States, of the country. Democrats are also trying to party like it's 1968 this week, or really even long before 1968, when there was an era of Jim Crow and segregation in the country. The convention schedule is literally dividing Democrat Party groups into meetings based on their race, which I guess is something they like doing these days. You can look at some of the groups on your screen. There is the Black Caucus meeting, the Hispanic Caucus meeting, the Asian American Pacific Northern Islander meeting, and the list goes on and on and on. And so what about all of that unity we've been hearing from the media, from Democrat Party leaders? You know, after they got rid of Joe Biden, it was just kumbaya. You know, the party's perfect now. We're headed towards the November election. But now even left-wing writers such as Maureen Dowd of the New York Times are openly calling what the Democrats did to Biden a coup. And of course, a coup it was. According to Dowd, the Bidens are resentful of Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, and of course, Kamala Harris. While President Biden is going to give a speech at the DNC, neither he nor his wife, Dr. Jill, plan on attending the nominating ceremony, where, of course, Kamala Harris will officially receive the Democratic Party's nomination for president. And so despite all this chaos, Vice President Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, have actually taken the lead in many national polls over former President Donald Trump and his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. According to 538, Harris and Walz enjoy more than a 2-point lead in the polling averages. A recently released poll from the Cook Political Report indicates that Harris-Walz have a significant lead over Trump and Vance in most of the swing states, too. And we can anticipate that Kamala Harris and her running mate will get another bounce in the polls after the DNC ends later this week. They will have another honeymoon period. But despite all of the positive poll numbers and the bounce that Harris has received, the bounce she is going to receive, a recent Ipsos poll shows that most Americans do not believe that Harris is any better on the key issues that will define this election. In fact, another Ipsos poll highlights what these key issues are, and the top 5 include the economy, inflation, crime, and immigration, all of which we would think could favor Donald Trump if voters view his presidency by his results. So now the question is, can Donald Trump and his campaign focus on these issues over the next 80 days? Three things are certain. Number one, the Democrats are nowhere near as united as they say. Number two, the DNC in Chicago is likely going to highlight the level of lawlessness and freakishness that Democrats inspire in their own voters. And three, this year's Democrats Party is the most radical it has ever been. And despite all the poll numbers, there actually is a little bit of good news for conservatives. When your opponent is encouraging its supporters to get vasectomies, maybe you're not losing as bad as you thought you were. I'm not making that up. The DNC is literally offering free castrations for their supporters. And it isn't just castrations for Democrat men. They are offering abortions for Democrat women too, with these little pop-up vans going around Chicago. It's like a taco truck to snip yourself. Take a look at some of the DNC supporters who, I guess, agree with this, who took to the streets dressed up as abortion pills. Watch. But remember, J.D. Vance is the weird one. They are totally the normal ones, right? Much more on the DNC convention, reaction from the Federalist Eddie Scarry on this, and much, much more straight ahead.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
As we just told you, Chicago is in complete chaos and freak show mode ahead of the Democrat National Convention this week. You have people dressed up as abortion pills. You have the pro-Palestine protesters. You have vasectomy vans driving, offering free vasectomies to Democrats. So joining me now to react to all of this craziness and Kamala's impending coronation to the top of the ticket officially, we are joined now by Eddie Scarry. He's a DC columnist for The Federalist, and he's the author of the 2022 hit book, Liberal Misery: How the Hateful Left Sucks Joy Out of Everything and Everyone. Eddie, thanks for joining us. I got to tell you, you look at these mobile vasectomy vans, these abortion protesters dressed up as the abortion pill in Chicago, the pro-Palestine protesters. They definitely look like the type of crowd that would suck the joy out of any regular American. What do you make of what's going on here as we kick off the DNC?
Well, I will be honest with you. I have not actually watched any of the coverage. I've seen these before. I can guess down to a T exactly what it's going to be like. That's no surprise. If you have, and you see the same thing at the Republican convention, it tends to draw out these weirdos. But I think that there's a certain morbidity, I would say, to the Democrat celebrations as they come and go. So that's not really surprising. I do think that they are just going to go ahead and emphasize what is going to be a very, very important, one of the very, very few policy differences between the Republicans and the Democrats going into this election, which is abortion. So they are going to talk about that. They know that is an issue that they tend to do well on. But again, they always do it in this very gross, kind of crass, morbid way. I don't think that's going to distract from what is going to be a very, very celebratory convention, almost in a way that will make you sick. But, you know, we'll get through it.
Yeah. Well, we'll do our best, and we'll try to do so without with watching the least amount of it as we possibly can. Let me ask you about the polls, which I mentioned in my intro. Kamala had a little bit of a bump after she took Biden's spot on the ticket. Nate Silver had said last week, I believe it was either him or Kraulidis of CNN, saying that really the polls were starting to reflect a stagnation, sort of like her honeymoon period was over. But of course, we have all this week, so she could even get another post-convention bump. You're a straight shooter. You're not afraid to call out the right when you think they're doing something dumb. And of course, obviously, we've seen you do that with the left. If you're on the Trump camp right now, or if you were advising them, or if you knew someone on the team, I mean, how should they really be feeling? Is it, is what the mainstream media is portraying about sort of this panic, and they need to be in panic and they need some changes? Do you agree with that? Do you think it's a little bit different? What are your thoughts on the state of their campaign? How should they be feeling right now?
I don't think there's any panic. I think that what they, I'm not going to advise the Trump campaign, but if I were in their shoes, I would say they need to be really thinking about the debates that are coming up. That's going to be the only shot that they've got the unfiltered access to the public. It's going to be Trump, and that's what happened with the Joe Biden debate. It wasn't necessarily that Trump knocked him out in any kind of way, but you had the direct comparison, completely unfiltered. The public got to see for the first time the two people and what they really were like. Trump needs to be preparing for that with Kamala Harris, who is not, if you go back and watch what she did with Mike Pence, she's not a poor performer whatsoever. The advantage was on the Democrat side because you had the BLM riots, you had COVID. I think, you just had the Trump administration kind of on its heels. Same thing for JD Vance. I think that Tim Walz is a lot like Joe Biden. He's just like this loud, screaming, kind of bullyish person. Be prepared for that kind of thing. But the debates are going to be really, really key here. I think that as far as the polling goes, the one thing I will say, we've got our first taste finally of what Kamala Harris and what a potential presidency, what kind of policies she believes in, what when it gets down to actual plans and proposals, policy proposals, what does that look like? Everyone's laughing at her. She had the $25,000 credit for first-time home buyers. No economist, not named Paul Krugman, thinks that that's a good idea. She stole the idea about the tips. No federal taxes on tip wage earners. Stole that from Trump. Then she has the child tax credit. Stole that from her boss, her current boss, Joe Biden. Everyone's looking at this and saying, maybe you really shouldn't be talking. But there's no way. She's going to start talking eventually. And as that comes out, the poll numbers, I think you are going to see not a complete reversal, but you are going to see a stunt in this supposed momentum that she's had over these last 3 weeks.
Well, I think if Trump's vice or thing that he does too much is like the personal, people say he does a personal attacks too much. I think for her, it's actually talking too much. That's the thing that she should probably be doing the least. And like you said, we will be seeing that in the debate. On the flip side, do you think any of that even matters? I mean, so like you said, she had the economic policy that she put out last week. She didn't even pronounce it correctly at the event. She called it price gauging. Even the media actually kind of saying, there was a Washington Post columnist on CNN over the weekend saying this is not going to work. This has been tried in Venezuela, Argentina, the Soviet Union. And so she's had fawning coverage up until this point. Is this sort of the thing that we'll start to see more and more people step in and actually say, hey, at least from the Democrat side, she shouldn't be pushing this, or this isn't going to work? I mean, why now? I mean, part of me, the cynical side of me is like, if they've been talking her up and praising her, and if she's gotten this fawning coverage, I mean, she could come out tomorrow and call for bread lines, call for something so extreme, and she almost wouldn't get any criticism.
Yeah, no, and I don't credit the media for this. I think that actually she has the same problem that Joe Biden and most Democrats have, because they listen to the media and they take their cues from the media because they work hand in hand. The media has been saying, well, we would like to see more policy proposal. We'd like to see more details. We'd like interviews. We'd like you to take questions. So now she's starting to do that. And now we're seeing actually why she hasn't been doing that, because she's not very smart. When it comes to that particular issue, I do not think she's a stupid person whatsoever. She is just not, she doesn't care about policy. This is something that JD Vance recently said in an interview. He said, she does not care about policy. I believe that when she came into office as vice president, she thought that was going to be a photo shoot. That's why when they gave her she was asking for responsibility. They finally gave her one, meaning Joe Biden. They finally gave her one, which is the border. She couldn't do it. There was a story in Axios this morning about how, it was told from the perspective of Joe Biden staffers. Where did all this glowing coverage, where did she suddenly become this rock star? Because The last thing that happened was that we gave her responsibility and then she ran away from it. That's what she did with the border. She said, "Oh no, I was never the border czar. Oh no, I was dealing with the root causes of migration." Whatever she did, it failed, and we're just now seeing. Now she's finally talking. She's listening to the media. She's doing what they asked her to do, which is have some details, propose some actual things we can talk about. Now we know why she didn't want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, you break through it. I don't know if you saw the clip of her. They sort of asked her how she was going to pay for a lot of this stuff, and she said something, I think it was on Friday or Saturday, to the effect of, well, you have the return on investment, when a kid grows up in a home as opposed to not growing up in a home, or, when you pay for things, when you do things like education, when that kid grows up, that's your return on investment. And you kind of shouldn't ask questions about how we pay for it up front, but how we pay for it down the road. Let me ask you, the dust is going to settle on all this. Like you talked about the debates coming up. I don't know if you're a betting man, but I guess your fair view, let's say in a month's time, do you think the state of the race is really changing that much? Are we going to see these 3 to 4 point swing state margins basically till November, and the polls will either be right or they'll be wrong? But do you think there's going to be some big switch, some big October surprise that changes things, or is this effectively the race for the next 80 days?
This is going to get very, very ugly. I have been saying that I said it well before the debate, but every time there was something big that happened, I wrote a piece that said, get ready for this. These people are not playing around. And that was the debate. Get ready. These people aren't playing around. Then an attempted assassination. Get ready. These people are not playing around. Then they push an incumbent president out of his re-election campaign, completely just give, without a single vote, give the nomination to somebody else who nobody likes. Suddenly she's popular. She's a rock star. She's the most beautiful person you've ever seen. These people, again, are not playing around. There will be a lot more to see going forward. I do think that as of now, because of what she did on Friday, which was she proposed this, her economic proposals, she put that out there. She's had a couple other things where she started finally talking about policy details to an extent, and now it's suddenly not looking very good. So the poll numbers, I think they're going to take a turn. I don't think it's going to be a complete 180. We're not going to get back to where it was when we had Joe Biden in the race and it was just a steal for Donald Trump. We're not going to see that because the press is going to do everything it can to push this woman across the finish line. But I think the debates are going to make a difference. They're going to make a difference. The thing I'm a little bit worried about is that Donald Trump is very easy to bait when it comes to, he will talk about January 6th for 2 hours. If they want to talk about January 6th, he will talk about that. What he should be doing is making the case saying, you know what, you know me. You've seen me as president. You know what I'm going to do. This person is pretending she wasn't in office for the last 3 years. What is she even talking about? Why did she change all her positions? Why is the media saying it's okay and it doesn't matter that she's completely changing her positions? He needs to make that case. It needs to be very relentless. The same thing with JD Vance. He needs to do the same thing with this fake dad, white, bumbling white dude shtick that Tim Walz has. Make the case, prosecute it. You can have a fun, lively campaign. That is something I'd like to see from Trump when he comes out and does these 3-hour press conferences. Liven up a little, that would be nice. But otherwise, you're going to have to prosecute the case against Kamala Harris. Don't get bogged down in January 6th, COVID, and things, 2020 election things from the past. Prosecute the case, and I think we're going to see not a complete reversal, but he can still get it done.
Yeah, and like you say, I mean, it has to be relentless. It has to be perfect because it's not like he has corporate media outlets asking these questions on his behalf. So it's up to, if he's not doing it, nobody else will. Mm-hmm. Eddie Scarry, thanks for joining us. Real quick before you go, what are you working on now? Do you have another book on the way? Like I said, Liberal Misery at the top was a good one and really descriptive of what we're seeing now, maybe in worse ways at the DNC. Obviously, you're at the Federalist and people can find you there. But anything you want to plug for the audience before you go?
Well, just you can find me on, I guess, what is now called X, but Twitter, @eScarry. Books, we will talk about that at a future date, but then always find me at the Federalist. Right now, let's just focus on the campaign, and you will find all my work at the Federalist, and you can follow me day to day on Twitter @eScarry.
Give him a follow. Eddie Scarry, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Coming up, we have much more on the radicals who have descended upon Chicago this week for the Democrat National Convention. We'll talk to someone who's on the ground and isn't only reporting on the protesters, but on the migrant crisis that has plagued that city and many other cities across the country, too. That's next.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
Now's the time to go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use the promo code to save 50% on your My Pillow 2.0. Not only that, for a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
mypillow.com.
In the backdrop of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago this week is the ongoing invasion of America by the illegal aliens who have been invited into our country by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. In New York, federal agents just apprehended a foreign gang leader accused of nearly 24 homicides in his home country of Peru. He's the head of a gang subtly named Los Killers, so I guess we will never really guess what made them famous. Among the alleged victims is a retired police officer, and so when you look at these crimes, when you look at the victims, it's no wonder that the defund the police Democrats love these illegal aliens. Nowhere is safe when everywhere is a border city, a border state, or a border town. In Louisiana, an illegal alien was among those responsible for the killing of a 43-year-old tour guide named Christy Thibodeau. The group he was with shot and killed her as part of an armed robbery spree. She was sitting in her car near one of her favorite places, the 700 block of St. Peter Street in the French Quarter. So this is someone whose life was all about showing others the beauty of the place she called home. She was a tour guide again. And yet she was cut down by people who shouldn't even be here in this country, but yet same people who we have invited in by the millions. In Wisconsin, an illegal alien from Mexico stands accused of stabbing 3 people, including 2 children who died of their wounds. One child was stabbed 16 times and the other 20 times. So how could someone do such an awful thing to a child? It is incomprehensible to a normal, moral human being or a moral and decent civilized society that any of this could happen. But this is who the Democratic Party represents now on a fundamental level. The insane, the criminal, the depraved, the vicious. There's a reason why Democrats are called the evil party. And evil is what's being celebrated in Chicago this week. Terry Newsome is a parents' rights activist and the host of the aptly named Behind Enemy Lines podcast. No relation to the far-left radical group of the same name that's in Chicago this week. Terry, thanks for joining us. Sorry, I had to say that because that group is actually getting making some noise this week, and maybe they're making the noise that we hear in the background. So, Terry, you're on the ground in Chicago right now. I do want to get to the immigration stuff because I know you've been doing a lot of reporting on that. But tell us a little bit what it looks like on the ground today and maybe what you're anticipating for the rest of the week.
Yeah, so I'm at Union Park, which is right just not too far from the United Center, and this is one of the Palestinian protests that they have scheduled here today. Tons of groups, tons of communists, anarchists everywhere. Fortunately, it's going to be peaceful now until things get dark, is where it usually gets a little crazier. Supposedly, things are going to ramp up every night. This group has another event scheduled on Thursday. I just learned on Wednesday at one of the other parks over here, they finally gave the Israelis the opportunity to protest, which is going to be right across from the pro-Hamas and anarchists. So I can't believe that's happening. I know I'd love to have them have a voice for themselves, but this is going to be, it's going to get bad every night. They have bleed kits scheduled, set up throughout all the different locations in this area as well, with multiple law enforcement, federal agencies. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah. Well, what has the city done, if anything, to put systems in place, whether it's more manpower or whatnot, to prevent things from getting out of control? I know at a public level, the mayor and the chief of police are saying, well, we're not going to allow chaos, we're not going to allow criminal behavior, we'll allow peaceful protests. But at least to me, the thing that's so interesting is, when it's regular people who are the victims of crime and chaos, Democrat leaders are more than fine to step behind and to allow that to take place. When it's going to affect their elected leaders in their convention is when they want to clamp down. So are they actually clamping down? Do you know anything about their plans to do so, or do you think they're going to take a back seat here?
Well, I saw this morning 1,000 CPD called in sick. They're already on. They're understaffed. So I hope it stays peaceful. I don't think it's wrong because so many different organizations, the Hamasidian supporters. You have you got African American folks, many of them that are here to protest against the Democratic Party. That ties back into the illegal immigration, where they're populating these people throughout all their neighborhoods, in their schools. They're taking away so much funding from them. We had our taxes go up $1 billion while they spent another additional $1 billion for these illegals. And it's, I just don't know how the city can sustain all this craziness, not just these rallies and protests, but financially, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the illegal immigration thing. It's something you've been covering across the country and how it's affected some of these cities. And so let's take Chicago, for example. I don't think most voters are aware of the fact, whether the Republicans do, but if you're a Democrat or an independent voter who is not living in a border town or a border state, which is actually pretty hard to come by anymore, the whole country is in effect a border state. But I still think if you went onto the street and you asked regular voters, if you told regular voters that we were paying for the housing of these illegal immigrants by the millions, if we were paying for their school system, if we mentioned the fact that in cities like Chicago and New York, public schools are being closed, gyms are being closed in order, preventing the actual local kids from using those gyms so that illegal migrants can be housed there. I mean, the list goes on. They're housing migrants in the airport. Talk about a little bit about what you've seen in Chicago. I know you mentioned the Black community is outraged by it, and honestly, I'm surprised it took so long. I mean, there's no group in this country that is more hurt, at least directly in the inner city when it comes to illegal immigration. So tell me a little bit about what you've seen.
Yeah, so for instance, it costs about $30,000 per student in the Chicago school system, which is really a joke, right? And they have over 10,000. So that's the number we know. I'm sure it's not a true number. And so if you do the math, as well as these bilingual teachers cost a lot more money. Some of the stuff that I read is that these students are sitting in some of these classrooms without bilingual teachers, learning nothing, so the school gets additional money, additional funding, but the education systems are awful. They're horrendous, some of the worst in the country. So parents are really upset about that. And then they also had a law in the state of Illinois where you can't take advantage of having money college students and go to the private schools. So the Democrats who are supposed to, care about these African-American minority communities are showing how they quickly turn their back for a new set of voters. I'm a Catholic too. I'm Italian-American Catholic. These Catholic charities is so culpable. You should see the police reports or the FOIA reports I got between them and the city of Chicago. They were putting them up in 55 apartments per day. And you got homeless people, in the wintertime freezing, or, they're giving them gift cards. They're giving them cars. There's another story I got coming out, Gateway Pundit. They're giving them impounded cars.
Yeah, I'm Catholic myself, and it's been frustrating to watch Catholic Charities, the national organization, really play a part in this human smuggling crisis that we have in this country. They're aiding and abetting the smuggling of millions of people into this country. And I can't really speak to what the logic is there because I don't agree with it. But I suspect that many of these people, whether they're Catholic or otherwise, from a moral perspective, are saying, well, we think we're helping people, right? But where is it in the Catholic doctrine or in any moral compass that in order to help someone who may be down here on the societal totem pole, to bring everyone down with them? In other words, to lower the standards of society that to the level of the people who are coming in isn't making things better for everyone. It's making things worse for everyone. And so when you have people living on the streets, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's hard to hear with this noise. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, when you have people living on the streets, when you're clogging up the school systems, when you're clogging up the hospitals, how is that making anyone's lives better? How is that the moral thing to do?
Yeah. Oh my God. I got stories I can tell you about Loyola Hospital, pumping them in there, having babies and stuff. But, to the point, Catholic Charity is supposed to be these, outside of making billions of dollars, right? So I got a FOIA. The city of Chicago has to send one of the Venezuelan women back home to Venezuela. Basically, the response was it wasn't in their contract. They said they migration back to their original countries, but they're coming into Chicago, and they'll move them to other states for and get paid for it. So if the Catholic Church is so loving, caring, and stuff, why aren't they sending these Venezuelan women, who, by the way, are getting beat big time? Most FOIAs that I have, crime-wise, are beating their wives, cutting, strangling them, hitting them with phones. One of the FOIAs I have, Catholic Charities told the city of Chicago, there's so much spousal abuse, they had to open up a whole new shelter just for abused women and children that are being beat by their husbands.
Yeah, the crime is out of control. And actually, I'm glad you touched upon that, as I did in the intro. Talk to me a little bit about what effect, I mean, so we know they're committing crimes, but on the actual crime rate itself, Chicago's already a very dangerous city to begin with. What types of crimes are we seeing? Are we seeing, for example, we're seeing quality of life crimes, but are we seeing things like petty thefts and things like that, burglaries? Again, it wouldn't be a surprise to me. You got people living on the streets at a certain point, you think they're going to take advantage.
Oh, sorry, you go in and out sometimes. I hope you can hear me. I live in the western suburbs. My mall had 150 Venezuelans between January 1st and June arrested multiple times, some arrested 10 times, western suburbs. So in some of the police reports, the FOIAs I have, you see the leftists are publishing stories saying they create less crimes than us. They don't do violent crimes. They are doing tremendous amounts of violent crimes. Like I said, sexual assault, human sex trafficking, beating their children. One guy beat his wife up because she sent money back home to her parents. Our tax dollars back to Venezuelans. Another guy beat the heck out of a 4-year-old because he wanted to get back at his wife because he was mad at her. Another guy sliced his wife's face. There's shootings. A 5-year-old child died of medical neglect inside the Pilsen Center. There's stolen cars, there's guns, there's weapons, there's drugs being put inside the toilet bowls. There's metal at all the centers, every single one of the centers with security guards. Some places have 5 guards with metal wands. The Venezuelan arrests in 2021 was 6, 2022 was 26, 2023 was 1,050, halfway through 2024, 1,720. These people commit less crimes than us? Give me a break.
It's also shocking, and again, we are told consistently that these are people coming here fleeing a socialist regime, even though that regime has been in place now for almost 30 years. And at a certain point, too, I think that was true in the beginning. You did have people flee, but at a certain point, you have to ask the question, I mean, how many people do you have to take in for us to not be accused of not being charitable enough anymore? In other words, haven't we done our part? Haven't we done our charity by taking a lot of people in? And also, if we're going to take so many people in that we're going to lower the quality of life of Americans, I mean, what type of, that's the thing that people don't understand that I'm sure you've seen on the ground. We are taking in people who, don't have skills, don't have a certain education levels, and they come here into the country and then they end up being on the public dime. It's astounding, and it's really at levels that most people don't understand. Terry Newsome, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. And we will check back in with you later this week to see what the latest is on the ground in Chicago.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Up next, the public education system is crumbling. 4 more years of Kamala Harris would be disastrous for children and parents across the country. That's straight ahead.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm here to tell you about my new product from MyPillow, towels that actually work. Watch this absorbency test. Here's another towel that we randomly went out and bought. Here's one of my towels with the nice design. I don't know if you can see this, but you could line a swimming pool with this. I mean, this is crazy. Get rid of it. Towels that actually work. What a concept. I'm interrupting this commercial to let you know you can get our 6-piece My Towels, regular $69.98, now only $29.98. Or you can save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels, made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Also, we have bath sheets, bath towels, washcloths, hand towels, and so much more. And the best part, with your promo code, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all My Towels. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
America's education system has become a vector for the transmission of various left-wing ideologies across the country directly to our children. That's essentially all it exists for anymore. You have feminism, environmentalism, anti-white, anti-Western resentment. It's all there. The public education system is the river that carries these ideas into the mainstream of society, and its source is the Department of Education. The Department of Education is responsible for creating policies related to federal financial aid for education, and by controlling the purse, it wields the ultimate authority over trends and outcomes, not only over education either. Remember the proposed Biden-Harris Title IX change that would have allowed men into women's sports and women's spaces on college campuses? It gets its teeth from the fact that it was tied to federal funding. Now, fortunately, the Supreme Court just struck down that change to Title IX a few days ago. But for all these reasons and for more, Donald Trump's proposal to abolish the Department of Education should appeal to anyone and everyone concerned about the future of this country and the education of our kids. He says he wants to get rid of the Department of Education with one small exception. Take a listen.
We're going to end the so-called Department of Education. We might have one desk, one person, just to make sure everyone's speaking English. Got to have a little bit of regulation, you know. Let's try and keep it so that you can only, that we're going to focus on some English. But after that, you can go ahead and do what you're going to do.
So one desk, one person. I'm for that. But the truth is the states should be running the education system. Education is a local issue. It is up to the parents, the people in the city, the people in that state to determine what is best for their children, not bureaucrats in Washington who want to mandate California-style liberalism in schools across the country. So where are Kamala Harris and Tim Walz on the issue of education specifically? Well, we'd love to tell you, but they don't have any policy proposals. They haven't released their plan. Kamala doesn't have any. But what we do know is that she has been Joe Biden's vice president for 4 years, and so that makes her complicit in every single thing that he's done. So we can expect more of the same, and actually, when Kamala Harris is involved, actually worse. We could expect worse from her. Here's some examples. Across the country, the public school system is failing our students. In Baltimore, for example, there are 13 high schools that don't have a single student who has grade level proficiency in math. Again, that is 40% of Baltimore high schools. That stat was worse in Chicago. In 2022, that city, for example, across 55 different schools, reported that not a single student was proficient in math or reading. And thanks to Democrat masking policies long after the pandemic ended, which kept students in masks, in classrooms, if they were even in schools at all, American students have now fallen further and further behind in test scores, academic metrics, you name it. That is the Democrat education platform for you. What about Tim Walz? 2 decades ago, long before he became governor of Minnesota, Walz started a gay-straight alliance club at a rural high school. Now, why you would want a grown man running a gay-straight alliance club at a school is really beyond me, beyond anyone, why even a school would need one of these clubs. Walz also enacted the trans refuge law when he was governor, which turned Minnesota into a kind of sanctuary state for the butchery that they like to call gender-affirming care for minors. And in other words, come one, come all. If you want to go butcher yourself, if you're a child who is perhaps going through some things and confused and you want to do things, permanent things to your body without parental consent, come to Minnesota because Tim Walz wants to help you get that done. The view Democrats take of children is that they are the property of the state. That's ultimately what it comes down to. That's why Tim Walz did the things he did as governor. That's why Kamala Harris wants to do a lot of those things if she becomes president. That's not hyperbole. As San Francisco's district attorney, Harris threatened to prosecute parents if their kids miss school. Here she is talking about it in 2010.
I would not be standing here were it not for the education I received. And I know many of us will say the same thing. And I believe a child going without an education is tantamount to a crime. So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy.
Now, look, I'm not against prosecuting for truancy laws necessarily. It's true that parents who play no role in ensuring their kids get an education should be punished to a degree. I'm for that. But it's just so interesting how Kamala Harris back then was saying she wanted kids to be in school, but then you look at things like the pandemic, wanting to keep kids out of school. She's caving to the unions. And what about now? When we look at the education system across the country now, how it's indoctrinating certain students, it kind of makes more sense when you look back why she would want to force students into these types of classrooms. Now, consider that clip, and now listen to this one. Listen to how gleefully Kamala Harris recalls putting fear into people's hearts when she was district attorney.
As a prosecutor and law enforcement, I have a huge stick. The school district has got a carrot. Let's work in tandem around our collective objective and goal, which is to get those kids in school. So, to that end, on my letterhead, now let me tell you something about my letterhead. When you're the DA of a major city in this country, usually the job comes with a badge. And there is often an artistic rendering of said badge on your stationery. So I sent a letter out on my letterhead to every parent in the school district, outlining the connection that was statistically proven between elementary school truancy, high school dropouts, who will become a victim of crime, and who will become a perpetrator of crime. We sent it out to everyone. A friend of mine actually called me and he said, Kamala, my wife got the letter. She freaked out. She brought all the kids into the living room, held up the letter, said, if you don't go to school, Kamala's going to put you and me in jail. Yes, we achieved intended effect.
So again, I can't state this enough. When the city of San Francisco and when the state of California were crumbling under crime policies pushed by Kamala Harris, policies like Proposition 57, which allowed vagrants into the streets, which raised the level of which theft and burglaries were prosecuted. She helped do that. She helped turn California into the crime hellhole it is today. When that was happening, she was focusing on prosecuting parents. So these people are nuts. I don't want Kamala Harris, or anyone for that matter, determining what the collective agreement is as a community, as she said in that clip, of what is best for our kids. And yet, in the current setup with the Department of Education, and if Kamala Harris becomes president, that's exactly what would happen. Our kids are in her hands. And all they'll use it for is to wage their own ideological agenda against them. Joining us now to discuss this is Demi Kraulidis. She's the Vice President of Moms for America. Debbie, thanks so much for joining us. There's a lot at stake at this election, you know, whether it's the economy, the border, but I think one issue that hits in every home really across the country that has young children is the future of these school children and what is at stake for them in this election. So talk to me a little bit about that and what your organization is doing to advocate for these families and children.
Thank you, Eduardo. We appreciate the invite. And yes, children's education is huge to parents. Clearly, we want a safe America. We want a bright future for our children where they can grow, live, and dream. America's the greatest country in the world. And we have failed in education. Clearly, what is it? $7 billion go to the Department of Education every year. That is a huge amount of money. It has become a mecca, a huge government organization. They've taken away, there's so many things you said in the open that I am just saying yes and amen to. They have taken away all local control for education. They brought it all to the Department of Education, and they are controlling it all with their monies, with their funding. With their money comes all the mandates. With their mandates comes all the crazy. And that is not what parents want. I don't know anyone that is happy with the Department of Education here in America. Our cities are failing. Our children are failing. Our states are failing. We are below national average all across the country. This is a huge problem. Our children deserve so much better, but it is not the Department of Education's job to do that. It is here local in our cities, in our towns, that we elect those representatives at those school boards, we work with those superintendents, and we are involved in our community. Money needs to stay in our states and in our cities, not at a big mecca with $7 billion a year in funding. What are they spending their money on, Eduardo?
Yeah, it's a big question. And you mentioned the school board elections. There's school board primaries underway right now in my home state of Florida, and I'm sure in many states across the country. And I want to use my state as an example and ask you about this message, broadly speaking, across the rest of the country. So I think what Governor DeSantis proved in Florida is that the issue of parental rights in education is one that crosses political lines. I mean, he won the Puerto Rican vote in the I-4 corridor, Orlando, Tampa areas, that is a traditionally Democrat voting bloc. And I believe, and analysts believe, part of that is because of his appeals on education. In other words, yes, it might be even for traditionally leaning Democrat voters and Democrat families, they want to put their foot down on some of this craziness that is being taught in schools. So my question for you is, Do you think that message is possible nationally? I mean, I don't even presume to know what your politics are, but the truth is, at a national level, there really is one political party advocating for parental rights and one that is not. So is there room for this appeal to maybe voters who traditionally aren't Republican? Is there a way that their votes can be picked up?
Yes, 100%. And you're in the land of the free. I'm in Illinois with Governor Pritzker. So you can imagine how it is here. So, right. I know. Sorry is right. That is not the case here. They just continue to take away parental rights. They continue to bully us with legislation. They have a supermajority, so they can do whatever they want. And it's very unfortunate. But, we've got we've got cities that control our state. This is a problem all around the country. I think people are waking up clearly. I mean, for the Department of Education, it's 40 years. 40 years that has been in place. Thank you, Jimmy Carter. And what has it done? I mean, we should be in a better place. We should be thriving. We should be successful. We should have parental rights. We should be able to control and be involved. We should not be bullied, pushed out, or intimidated. And that's what they're doing. And they're doing it with very big issues, Our children's sexuality. The love or hate of America, the oppressors, sexual material in the classroom, not allowing parents to be involved, not allowing parents to have a say. And they're just they're transforming our children. And they somehow think they have the right to do that, and they don't. So I think that education is exactly what you're saying. There is no party. This isn't a Republican or Democrat issue. This is an American issue, and this is a mother and a father issue. We need safe places where our children can be successful. Let me just read this to you, right? The Department of Education, their goal was to promote student achievement, equal access to education, fail, and prepare students for life. They failed. So
they have failed on all fronts.
Yeah,
on all
we need
fronts.
to regroup.
And I think What's interesting is you mentioned the fact that the department has only been around for a couple decades, and I think that's something that really all Americans need to hear, because when people talk about, the media would portray as an example Trump's idea to disband the Department of Education, they would say that that's radical. Oh my gosh, he wants to get rid of the Department of Education, and on the surface level, he wants to get rid of education. That's bad. But I think when you explain to Americans, well, we went through most of our history without this federal department.
President Carter brought this in. So
exactly.
This is
and so I think exactly. I think when you show people that it really hasn't been around that long, and like you said, when their actual the actual assessment on whether they've met their goals has been a complete failure, then people are more open to the idea. Let me ask you, your organization is putting together an event. Talk to us a little bit about it, what the goals are, and what you hope to do with it.
Well, we're doing all kinds of things, so I'm not even sure where to start, but I do want to invite all the moms to join Moms for America. We are an organization with about 500,000 moms reclaiming our culture for truth, family, freedom, and the Constitution. Now, you will see here on the screen that we are going on tour with Tucker Carlson. Isn't this amazing? So, moms, if you would like to see us, we are in 16 states with Tucker. Well, 16 stops, because we're going to a couple states twice. But we're on the road with Tucker Carlson. We are moving moms. We're just educating moms all across the country about what needs to be done, what rights we have, how important they are, how to protect our children. So we love Tucker, and he's got an all-star lineup. Look at this. We've got Bongino, we've got Megyn Kelly, we've got Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck is sold out. Might be general tickets available. We're just going across the country with him. We're hosting the VIP, so there's VIP tickets available with Moms for America, and then we're going on the road. So we're going to meet moms all across the country. This is leading up to the election. Clearly, this is not a Republican or a Democratic tour. This is a tour to talk about the concerns that face us and the answers that are here in the palm of our hands. And elections are clearly an answer to that. Elections have consequences. So all moms have got to be out voting. No one knows better. They're the CEO of their home. We say this to everyone. We love the dads. We love the dads. But the moms make those decisions in their home. from what the children wear to what they eat to the schools that they go to. Mostly they're nurturing their children every day. They're fostering their future, and they've got to wake up. They've got to be involved, because if we don't, we won't have an America. So that's one of the things that we're doing with Tucker. We're going across the country with him. So please join us. You can go to momsforamerica.us. You can go and you can look at VIP tickets, or you can look at general tickets. It connects you to all that. Love to see you. And then we talk about all of these issues every day. All issues are mom issues. I mean, think about it. Everything affects our home and our children. So we have all kinds of material. We train up our moms. We empower them and educate them. We provide resources and seminars and webinars on all the topics that are so important to us as moms, whether it's anything that happens at your kitchen table or to Congress. We're here to help you, moms, in your journey through motherhood. What a big job it is, but it is the greatest job that any of us will do within the four walls of our homes.
Well, Debbie, you had me at Tucker. I wish you would have said that at the forefront. Tucker's a friend. I used to work for him, so I know you guys are going to have a great time, and I think you're going to have a really effective tour.
We love Tucker. He's a hoot. He's a hoot.
Let me ask you, you talk about voting, and something that I think about as we head into the November elections is, no matter what happens, there's still going to be the next phase. In other words, if Trump wins, there's still a lot of work to be done. If Kamala Harris wins, whatever issue you care about, there's going to be even more work to be done. And so for a parent who does their part in voting, but beyond that, what do you tell mothers and allies of mothers, whether it's fathers or families? What do you tell them, that they can be doing in their day-to-day lives to improve, let's say, their school district, their own school? What are some of the things that you advise parents to do?
Absolutely. Well, first, the home is your sanctuary. So start there with your children. You've got to train them up. It's so different now. My kids are 26, 24, and 19. Boy, if you're raising a child in this culture right now, you got to train them up differently. You've got to know that. So again, we provide those resources, but you have to speak up. If you have a question or something doesn't feel right to you, you've got to speak up, you got to show up, and you got to help correct it. So if you run for school board, or you take your children out of the educational system, or you do homeschooling, or whatever you do in your home and in your community, do it. Speak up, share it, because without you, there really isn't change. And if no one says anything, then they assume that it's okay. And it's not okay. If you raise enough ruckus and you speak enough truth, other mothers will come alongside you. Courage is contagious. And we see this all across the country. You don't have to run for school board, but you could. You could take it on in your community. If there's LGBTQ at your library and they're reading it for toddlers, speak up. I think more and more moms are waking up, and we understand that there is got to be some type of common sense all across this country. We do not need to sexualize children. We do not need to, teach them horrible things that have nothing to do with them. If they're in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, what they're teaching them is just outrageous. It's not appropriate. It's absolutely not. And you as moms tell them it's not appropriate, and you're not going to stand for it. And I'll tell you, things change that way.
It's such a smart point. And again, for anyone out there who's doubting, you can look this stuff up. They are showing pornographic books, pornographic materials. They're teaching young children, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, about sex, things that you wouldn't even think of teaching or talking to your own kids about for years to come from those ages. So it is really sick and disgusting.
We couldn't say it on air today. But they can teach it in the school.
Well, you can hear, but there are many places where, yes, they would take you off of YouTube. They would take you off where a lot of other podcasting platforms are. We're thankful here that at Frank Speech, we can say whatever we want. We can show whatever we want. So maybe we'll have to have you back to go through some of those things. But again, I think it's a genius point. There are so many, if you think about it, if you think about new parents right now, they are really raising kids in the first generation of iPads, iPhones, of social media. So this is new for everyone. Your organization provides these great resources because, again, if you think of our parents, our grandparents, generations before, they didn't necessarily have to deal with this. They probably dealt with similar things in their own way that was appropriate to the time, but things are changing. Things are moving so fast. So real quick, before you go, Debbie, where can people find your website? What is your website again for parents and moms out there who want to get involved?
Thank you. And when you just even talking about screen time, we have all of these issues. Everything that you're thinking of, Mom, we have all of that material on there, from gender to school board to education to social media, the whole thing, because these are things that affect you as a mom. You can go to momsforamerica.us. This happens to be Tucker Carlson right on the front page, but you'll see right next to it, it's what we do, what our mission is, reclaiming our culture for truth, family, freedom, and the Constitution. Again, we're here to help you moms. We have a new show coming out too, The Mom View, which is a conservative alternative to The View. I mean, we're all about common sense. We're about talking about things that matter. Timeless truths, the foundation of the Constitution in our country, and just the magic and the beauty of being a mother, traditional family values, and restoring homes and families all across America. You moms, you're the greatest influencers. Don't let this world drag you down, and we're here to help you. We're the ultimate support group, so come join us.
I love that. Deborah Kraulidis, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.
And that's about it for us tonight here on The Absolute Truth. Tune in all week for more coverage of the craziest moments out of Chicago. Have a good night.
To celebrate the new year, we're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free.